we're going to talk about the Saints draft grade now and how they fared in this year's NFL draft. The Saints had a weird one, to say the least. This is a very odd one. This is a team that they just lost Drew Brees. Problems on defense, kind of the big conversation outside of the quarterback position there. They have Jameis Winston now. They gave Taysom Hill like $140 million voided. Like the contract like isn't real. I don't know. The whole thing is weird. I don't understand why they had to give all that money on it if it's just all being voided anyways. I don't know what the whole process is on that. Those people that are handling all the bookworks on some of these NFL teams with those voided years are like doing black magic over there. I don't know. Is it legal? I don't know. Apparently it is, but some weird stuff going on over there. But the Saints had a really weird draft because there was, in my opinion, a lot of reaching going on, and that's not to like preface how the grading's going to go for this, but you know, I a little bit of concern with how they're picking when and just kind of like some of the guys they grabbed and where they got them. Not necessarily the guys, but like where they got them. So we'll start off. We'll talk about the team needs first. The ones that I really identified, and this is in no real specific order, aside from like wide receiver, I have more towards the like at the end of the list. I don't want to say that that's the least important on the list, but I was thinking in terms of defense, like I felt like defense was the most important position for them. Cornerback, D-line, linebacker, and wide receiver. Now, D-line's kind of general because there's a lot going on there, but like Cam Jordan's getting older and I mean, he's not getting any younger, and they lost Trey Hendrickson. So, you know, with him getting older, Hendrickson being gone, you do lose a lot on the D-line right there, or you're going to lose some more in the next year or two, depending on however long he keeps playing. The cornerback position really suffering, you know, outside of, you know, Marshawn Lattimore, a lot of questions on that. And then the linebacking core, I'm going to be honest with you, like I'm pretty well versed in a lot of position groups around the league. Demario Davis is probably and I don't even know if he's still there, but I think he is. I could be wrong. I don't really know a ton about the linebacking core in New Orleans, so I feel like that's a red flag. They drafted a linebacker in the second round, so obviously it had to have been a position of need. Wide receiver is another one, and the big reason I have wide receiver on there is because outside of Michael Thomas, it's kind of a who's who at the wide receiver position in New Orleans. And I stress the kind of, because maybe I just don't know the position group as well as fans do there, and that piece of, you know, information right there would probably get argued by anyone who's a fan of the Saints, but you don't have like that real big eye-popping name-valued wide receiver at the number 2 spot, or, you know, I just think Michael Thomas when I think of the Saints. So that's kind of how I look at their positional needs. Now, as we actually go through the draft class and break it down, in round number 1, pick 28, they took edge rusher Peyton Turner out of Houston. This was a weird pick. I remember the reaction not being great when it happened live during the draft, and I remember, you know, thinking, okay, what is it with Peyton Turner that turns everyone off? Well, he only played 5 games in 2020, but he only started in 4. He flashed really well, and he put up solid numbers. It's just the fact that the sample size was so small, and on top of that, the 2 years prior, he wasn't really dominant or anything like that at all. He has fantastic size though, so I don't want to sit here and just rag on him. Like there are like pluses to him, and when I looked into him as a player, I see what like they're looking for in him and why they grabbed him. Great size at 6'6", 270. He flashed in the games he produced in 2020. So the sample size is small, but he produced in those 4 games. So like, don't get me wrong. He showed up in the games he played. It's just the fact that the sample size is so small. Then from there, he can play inside and outside because of his size. When you're at like that 6'6", 270 range, give or take, you have room to put on some weight or lose some weight to really focus on playing inside or outside more. So the versatility is there. I think that's a really good pick for them because depending on how things shake out for their defensive line, they're able to really kind of play with where they want to put him. I'm assuming he's probably going to play more outside than anything. He is an edge rusher naturally, but I mean, you never really know with the NFL. Players switch positions all the time, especially when you're at that size. Like the room to switch around your position, really, it's only like heightened. As far and on top of that, he has very physical play style, very high motor. So this is like what you're looking for in terms of like potential upside on a player. Now, the competition level is what lacked in his breakout year. I believe that the one tackle of note that he went against, something Christensen, I can't remember his first name, Christensen from BYU. He went up against him, didn't really have a stellar game against him, but he was able to, you know, ransack the guys that like are probably not even going to be sniffing playtime in the NFL or even get into the NFL, never mind sniff playtime. And, you know, he just wasn't as dominant in the previous 2 years. So the first round pick, I would say, kind of a dud. I think that, there was question marks at other positions that were players, that were available. And so I can see why they maybe went with this guy, but he also had question marks as well. Just a lot of people had him picked as a day 2 guy and somebody you could have gotten in the second round. I don't think anyone was really gunning for Peyton Turner. I would love to know the thought processes for drafts and stuff like that, and why some teams end up reaching for a certain player. I know that with the Raiders, with the Alex Leatherwood pick, they apparently went to him because they might have gotten some bad information that somebody else was gunning to grab him. But in reality, everyone saw the Raiders draft him, and they were just thinking, what was the point of that move? So that I'm curious as to what the process was that led to the Saints going after Peyton Turner so early in the draft here in the first round. Going into round 2 at pick number 60, Pete Warner out of Ohio State. This is a guy that, again, versatility is a big thing. Played all 3 linebacker positions. Classic linebacker size. So he's not the new age linebacker. He's more the big thumper type of linebacker you used to see, 6'3", 240 pounds. He's a big dude. He's actually pretty good with coverage in the middle of the field, covering up the seam routes, things like that, which is what you want from a bigger linebacker. You want him to be able to cover if he's going to be that big. So should be able to handle tight ends well if he improves and gets really good at covering in the middle of the field there, but he already shows some promise. The biggest knocks, he's not as quick as some of the elite linebackers are these days. Obviously, some of the more elite linebackers are a little bit smaller, so there's that kind of working against him. The NFL is shifting away from those big thumping linebackers, but whether he plays more in the middle of the field or if he's more of an outside backer, if he's playing, Will or Sam, there's a good possibility he's not even really in the middle of the field based off what they need over there in New Orleans when it comes time for him to start playing. So we'll see how that works out for him. He doesn't have the super elite speed. Tackling angles need work. He averaged 10 missed tackles a year the last 3 seasons over there in Ohio State. So that's kind of something you need to keep an eye on. You don't want to have a linebacker who's missing tackles consistently. Missed tackles are, what kill defenses, especially in late game. So that's something he's going to have to work on. And a lot of people identified the angles at which he takes the tackles as the biggest problem from what I've read. And then on top of that, this is another one of those reaches. He was graded as a day 3 guy by a lot of places. I saw some people grading him at day 2, and even the day 2 grades were 3rd round grades. So again, another reach that, they probably could have waited to go after, or maybe traded back, took some capital, and then got him later. That's the theme for the Saints draft here, is I feel unless they literally had nobody calling them and nobody wanted their picks, I feel you could have traded back and gotten something, even if it's an extra pick or 2 this year or later. I don't know. Reaching never makes sense to me. Unless there's nobody who wants your pick. That's the only time I could see it reaching, I guess, work making sense in your situation, if there's literally nobody else on your board that is rated higher than them. Going into the 3rd round, pick number 76, Paulson Adebo out of Stanford. I like this pick. So Saints fans, if you've bared with me through these first 2 picks here, I'm not trying to rag on you guys. I'm just giving my honest opinions on this one. I like this pick, though. The dude's a playmaker, 6'1", 198 pounds, 8 interceptions and 24 pass breakups in 2 years. He's a playmaker. That's great, and he's got really good size. A bigger corner who can move quick. You like that. He missed out on 2020. He opted out of the season, so that was one of the big knocks is, is he able to keep up that production despite missing a year? A lot of questions about players who opted out for 2020, so I'm not going to really knock him hard for that one. But he also got beat on double moves a lot. You can see that in his game tape. On top of that, missed tackles are an issue, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because his skill set fits zone, and if he's playing zone, he needs to be a good tackler. And if you're not good at tackling, those zone teams that would want to bring him in are going to be scared away by that sort of thing. Obviously, it didn't scare the Saints away. He was pretty much projected around the 3rd round from a lot of places from what I looked at. Went in the 3rd. So as long as his tackling does not become an issue in the NFL, I think this is a really good pick for you guys. Cornerback was a really big position of need, and I think you guys got a really good value pick with Adebo Paulson here, or Paulson Adebo, excuse me. I have his last name first name on here written backwards. But overall, I think this is a really good pick. Day 2 pick, round 3, depth to a position of need. Solid choice there. Round number 4, you have Ian Book. This is a weird one. And I say that because quarterbacks went going into this draft, like a while ago. This is before the offseason and like the the offseason work started and all the scouting and everything on all these quarterbacks. It never felt like quarterbacks were going to go the way they did. It wasn't until like the lead up to the draft and we got to like, the last like month or two leading into the draft where like the quarterback market just like was full steam ahead and everyone was ready to take a quarterback. Guys like, Davis Mills also went early. Everyone went really early. Ian Book went in the 4th round. This is a guy that a lot of people had as undrafted or like a 7th round pick at best. And he went in the 4th round of New Orleans. Now, 3-year starter, 2-year team captain. A lot to like about that. Leadership qualities. You want that from a quarterback. And as far as like how his game plays, he's really good at climbing the pocket. He's not one of those people that's just going to bail out and rush out. Like he can, but he's also willing to climb the pocket and like fight and like stay in the pocket and do what like a pocket passer is supposed to. So he has that going for him. He has very good touch and catchable balls, which is something that a lot of quarterbacks don't have. You see a lot of quarterbacks that are coming into the NFL that have like those rocket arms, but they have no idea how to throw a touch pass. Ian Book has that down to a T. Whether you want to argue that's because his arm strength is lacking or not, like that's not a conversation I'm going to have, but that is something I've seen people say. The knocks going for him, his progression reading is a little bit slow. Arm strength isn't the NFL caliber, and he can be he can be a little bit indecisive. So I think this is a reach, but in other situations, it might not normally be. But I think in this case, it is a reach because I don't know. You could argue it is. You could argue it isn't. Quarterbacks all went so high in this draft, it almost makes it not a reach. But in essence, like I don't think that he was worth a 4th round pick. Like there had to have been somebody graded higher on your board than him. That's the only way I can look at that. Is everyone thought that he might not everyone, but a vast majority thought that he might not even go drafted or he was going like round 7. So, 4th round pick, that's the meat and potatoes part of the draft where, you're getting those depth guys at positions. You have Taysom Hill. You have Jameis Winston. I don't know if they have anybody else in the quarterback room, so I'm just confused as to why they went so early with Ian Book. If you liked Ian Book, you could have waited round 5, 6, 7, and round 5's even still a stretch, like 6 or 7, realistically. I don't think anyone else would have taken Ian Book, to be quite honest with you, that early, or within the next couple of rounds. Like I think he would have been there in round 6 for him, and they could have opted for somebody else that, could have been a depth piece or like a project type player for another position in need there at like the interior D line or at the wide receiver position. So a little bit of a head scratcher on that one. Round number 6, pick 206, you have offensive tackle Landon Young. This is going to be a project type of guy. He's very solid size, 6'6", 310 pounds, plays through the whistle type of guy. He's going up until the very end of the play, which is something you really want. Very good motor. He's going to be a project type of guy. He has all the traits you're looking for. I don't expect to see him getting a bunch of playing time, barring any injuries to the Saints offensive line. He's definitely a guy that'll work in as relief and, hone his skills behind the actual starters of the offensive line. But this is a solid pick addressing not a super pressing position of need, but I don't have it listed on here. But the way I see it, I'm a Colts fan. And I always say this whenever I'm discussing offensive line. I saw what a bad offensive line did to Andrew Luck. So you can never have too much depth on the offensive line. And when you're going like round 6, you get a guy that has all the physical tools and the traits that you're looking for, and you hopefully can mold him into an actual player to start or at least be like a fill-in guy on rotation for that offensive line. So I'm always good for late round offensive linemen. Then in round number 7, pick 255, Kawan Baker out of South Alabama. This is a really good pick for the 7th round. He has crazy size and athleticism. So 6'1", 210 pounds, not super, super tall, but he's got the height. He's got some good weight. On top of that, 4.43 40-yard dash. He's got the 39.5-inch vertical. Talk about athleticism. This is like so much athleticism and great size to go with it. You'd love to see it. It's, again, another project player, but it's a really good project hit. Like he has all, he checks all the boxes in terms of physical traits and things you want to see. He can get up. He's really good at adjusting to the ball when he's heading towards it. So even if it's like thrown off target a little bit, he's really good at adjusting and making his way to the football. On top of that, he's played a fair amount at at not any position, I want to say, in the wide receiver spot, but he's played a fair amount inside and outside that should translate well into the NFL. I saw some places saying that he might be really, really good at playing slot because he'd be a bigger slot wide receiver because he still has the speed. So who knows where he's going to end up playing in that Saints system, but I mean, this is a really good project guy, especially with my point earlier being that like Michael Thomas is kind of like the one big name that New Orleans has at wide receiver, and then everyone else is just a list of people. Hopefully this could work out for them, and if he ends up playing in the slot, big-bodied slot guy that has the speed and quickness to make plays, you can't ask for much else there. Some of the knocks that went towards him, apparently he struggles when cornerbacks out-leverage him. I'm not going to sit here and say that I have seen tape on Kawan Baker. Just reading off the numbers and the size and things like that, I like the way the pick sounds. And when you're going in round number 7, again, you're going based off of more traits and things you like about a player than anything else. So he has a problem with getting out-leveraged by some cornerbacks. He needs to work on being a little bit more physical, and his hands can be inconsistent at times. I did notice that in the stat sheet. He does have some drops, so obviously that'll be something he needs to work out in his game. But I think in terms of just like raw numbers and athleticism, he should be good for special teams. Good size. If you want to plug him in the slot, like some of those scouts are saying you should, a big-bodied slot guy that has the speed. I mean, that's a recipe for success right there. It's just a matter of can they put it all together and develop him. And honestly, Sean Payton's system is very friendly to wide receivers. We've seen guys like Marquise Colston, Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn Jr. when he was there for a little bit. Like we've seen guys that have really produced in that offense. I think that this will be a guy that Sean Payton's going to really enjoy and getting his hands on. Now, as far as the actual grading goes for the Saints here, I saw some people give them like C minuses. I saw C's. I don't think I've seen any grade beyond that. I saw somebody give them a D plus. I don't really agree with that one. My grade's not going to be super great, so brace yourself if you've made it the whole way through, Saints fans. I'm going to give them a C plus. I think that this is a fair grade, and I might even be being a little bit generous. But I will say that there's a lot of potential. They just like, again, Peyton Turner, the small sample size, he was very dominant in the 4 games that he was putting on those numbers. It's just a matter of, is he going to continue to be that dominant when he gets into the NFL? Pete Werner, a little bit of a reach. This is somebody that they could have gotten in round 3. But then they did have some solid picks, round 6, round 7, the meat and potatoes type of guys where you're just basing off of like physical traits and intangibles, things like that. Can we mold them into the player we want him to be or that we need on our team? I really like the Kawan Baker pick, the Ian Book pick, there's no pressure for him. I think you could have gotten him a little bit later, but I think the Ian Book pick makes sense in terms of quarterback and what they did with Drew Brees. Drew Brees never had super elite level arm talent. He was more so just like deadly laser accurate. Obviously, if you look at the way his career passing percentage looked, the dude was deadly accurate, but he was never really known for having the super explosive arm. So even if he could develop and get a little bit stronger and maybe put a little bit more power in his throws, Sean Payton might see kind of like a Drew Brees-esque type of thing with him. I don't know. But, and then the Paulson Adebo pick, I think that's a really good 3rd-round pick. So I don't want to grade them too low, but I think that like C+ is right around like honestly on the high side, but where I think that they fit in terms of what I've seen from grades from other places. Would love to know what you think in the comments section down below, my Saints fans. Please tell me whether I'm right or wrong on that one.